Hello again. My name is Njiben Zama, and I'd like to welcome you to Against the Odds, a show where we believe that sharing information can inspire and also transform. We believe that our lives are like closed books, containing treasure troves of information that, if open, can go a long way to help inspire someone. Today we're going to be talking about documenting and preserving our culture. If you happen, to have watched TV anywhere in the world, a couple of weeks ago, you would have learned that Texas was in a really bad shape. I know so because I got calls from friends and family around the world, even from my own young village in Santa, southern Cameroon. Everything imaginable, happened in Texas. There was power loss, there was no heat, no water, and in some cases, no food. It felt like we were back in the village. And yes, we're kind of like back in the village because we moved in with friends of ours who had power, heat, and water. There was a communal feel in the atmosphere, 3 families living together. We ate together, watched TV together, and slept wherever was convenient. And let me take this opportunity to thank our benefactors, for hosting us. You see, what resulted from this temporary move-in with our friends is that I ended up with a lot of time on my hands. When you're in your own home, there are millions of things that can distract you. But at my friends, I had the opportunity to be still. And when that happened, 2 things happened. One was that I thought about my mother a lot. You see, the snow brought back memories of her, memories of, Christmas with her. She's been gone now for 6 years, but last week's weather brought back, vivid memories. Because she hated winters, but she loved the Christmas season. And that's when there was snow on the ground and all that. She loved the Christmas season, not entirely for its religious connotations, but for its pageantry. I would take her to the mall in Michigan and she would just marvel at the decorations. I would drive her around the more affluent neighborhoods in Ann Arbor, and she'll be mesmerized by the Christmas lights adorning the trees and the buildings, So she would spend most of her winters, sitting in her favorite spot, watching the snow through the window. It was during one of those winters that we really bonded. We spent countless hours in my basement studio recording, crafting a masterpiece, one that would enshrine her voice for posterity. At the time, the prosperity aspect never occurred to me. All I wanted was to capture the raw talent that I had just discovered. Well, of course, I'd heard her sing growing up. She regularly sang lullabies to my children. But the fact that at 76 years old, she could hold a tune, sing on cue and on the beat. That just blew me away. Those of you who are musically inclined know what I'm talking about. But, it came to her naturally. And I instantly regretted that I hadn't discovered her talent, earlier. I wonder what would have happened, what would have been the outcome had I discovered the talent, sooner. Maybe we could have produced more albums. Maybe we could have spent more time together. You know, I don't know. But you see, I cherish that time, you know, because I grew up with my grandmother. So that time spent together, you know, was an opportunity for me to know her better. And I took advantage of it. During last week's dreadful winter weather, you know, I listened to her CD and her voice. And her voice was very soothing and calming in the midst of the storm, you know, and, you know, coupled with the messages that she was sharing. And I'm thankful that I took the time to capture her voice, because now I have her with me forever. Now, it wasn't just her voice that I captured, you know. It was the history, it was the language, it was the piece of our culture that was preserved for future generations. You know, and as I reflected on my mother's legacy, I decided to explore some more. You know, I saw stories that align with the core of this platform, you know, which is sharing stories. So this led me to quite, you know, a few resources, some books, articles, texts, were from WhatsApp and all that. But it led me to discover some great books. You know, and the first book that I picked up, the first book that I read, you know, is titled Beyond Challenges. It is a book co-authored by 15 Southern Cameroonian female physicians here in the US. No, that was championed by Dr. Omarine Ase. In it, they talk about their childhood, getting into medical school, marriage, love, divorce, racism, and all that. It encompasses a lot of stuff. One story that comes to mind is that of Dr. B. Akwen Kadzong Formunda. You know, in it she relates, you know, the story of a five-year-old patient, you know, white male patient, who refused to have her examine him. I mean, it was just fascinating, to me at least, to read the whole story. You know, she said that was her first time of encountering not so subtle racism. And it struck her because it was coming from a child. You know, the book chronicles the stories of their lives, you know, like I said, their love, their practice of medicine, and really dovetails into the mission of this platform, which is to inspire and transform lives by sharing their stories. You know, I would say it is a great resource for anyone who aspires to become a doctor, because it actually chronicles their sometimes seemingly, you know, insurmountable journeys. It details how they overcame the obstacles on their way to succeeding in their chosen fields. I mean, it's a good read and I would highly recommend it. The second book that I picked up, that I'm still reading, I'm not done yet, the title is Yefon, The Red Necklace by Sandra von Duffet. It is a powerful, emotional, you know, tale of ambition and courage, you know, as told through the, you know, through the prism of the Sauk culture. I mean, Sauk is a clan in, you know, the northwest region of Southern Cameroon. The book, you know, was inspired by the life story of Sandra's grandmother, Yefon Justina von Duffet. You know, in it she describes growing up in the village. She describes the customs, the norms, all of which Yefon, breaks in order to forge her path, to achieve her dreams. I mean, reading the book, part of it, I'm not done yet, but reading the book took me back to my village, took me back to my childhood, because indeed the scenes she described were reminiscent of what I had gone through. So, it was just a great book. So, why am I telling you all this? In a nutshell, I'm telling you about cultural identity and preservation. The three instances mentioned here, all of them have one thing in common: historical preservation through storytelling. My mother did by recording songs that she sang while growing up. Dr. Tadzong Formunda, and Sandra did so in book form, which is very commendable. I am very convinced that Africa would be in much better shape today if our foreparents had written down their stories. Our customs, traditions, religions, and languages, would have been passed down to future generations. So, I look at it this way. I think it's imperative for us to cultivate the mindset of writing our individual stories, because together, if we do that, then all of them together will form a collective map, for where we have been, where we are, and where we are headed. The author and satirist Terry Pratchett, said, if you do not know where you come from, then you don't know where you are. If you don't know where you're coming from, you won't know where you are. And if you don't know where you are, then you don't know where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, then you're probably going the wrong way. So our culture is what defines us as a people. And it is not an understatement to say that we, the first generation immigrants, in most cases, are the last ones to have strong bonds with our home countries. And let me just illustrate that a little bit. When I was listening to my mother's music, my son asked me, what she was saying. She asked me, what was your mother saying on the record? Well, he did that because he did not understand. He doesn't understand nor speak Ngemba. In Ngemba language, that's my language. He doesn't understand it. I failed to teach him. I did not teach him. So he would not understand a word my mother saying, his grandmother saying. So the cultural bonds between my mother and my son are broken. They're broken. And those cultural bonds and ties will be broken by our children and grandchildren, because, let me put it this way, their umbilical cords are tethered to this country or whichever country that we find ourselves in. And we're gradually losing the next generation of our offspring, and consequently our culture and identity. We have all seen a number of Black Americans going back to Africa in search of their roots, their identity. Of course, our children, our descendants will be able to find their roots. They'll be able to go to the village, and identify those roots. But merely identifying their roots without the cultural underpinnings girding that culture would be akin to like not knowing where they come from. So, what do we do? So, while there are several ways in which we can document our stories, to me, writing appears to be the one that would elicit a lot more introspection and logical narration. Because no matter how, because I strongly believe that you cannot, or I cannot, let me take myself in this case. Regardless of the number of stories that I tell my son about growing up, they wouldn't be as, they wouldn't be as putting in the book, because I cannot remember, if I'm telling you, I cannot remember everything that happened. But if I sit down to write, then everything will be logical, everything would, follow a sequence, and then I can document as many things in the book than just merely passing it on. I mean, just like our foreparents did. They passed on, stories. They were not written. They passed them on verbally, orally. And so we forget. As time goes on, we forget. So I'm saying that, writing down our stories is the best way to go. I know how daunting it is just thinking about writing a book. But I want to say it's easy. Because all you have to do is make that decision that you're going to write your story. And once that's made, all you need to do is write a page a day. A page a day in a week makes 7 pages. In a month makes 30 pages. And in a year, 365 days, you have 365 pages chock full of your life story. I know so because I have done it. I've written and published a book, not about my life, but a book nonetheless. So our saving grace, I think, is writing down our stories. Our forefathers didn't because they couldn't. Now we can. We have that privilege. They did not have that privilege. But today we do. We do have that privilege. We have the know-how, we have the tools at our fingertips, and we can do it. Think about it. So I want to call upon you, to be a part of a movement, that seeks as its mission to document our history for posterity, for our children and our grandchildren. I have included links below to help you through the book writing process. I know it can be challenging, but like I said again, let's put in our minds that we can do it and that we should do it. I hope you picked something from this, and I hope it inspires you to at least start documenting your history, your life story. Please share and comment below, and until next time, be safe, and thanks for watching.
Mr. Gabriel, you don't go for one man country. Don't forget controversy. Country talk, you don't forget. Emiba say if you want man. What man don't deny? Jay no, you don't talk back for country. Country talk, you know sabi.